Okay, okay. Hello, hello, and welcome, guys. Just doing a little stream here. I'm hanging out with my friends, Micah Curtis and Artemis Worm. Is that right? Is that how you say it?
Yes.
Cool.
Am I censored now?
Yeah, you can. You're now free to speak until which time I find that you are no longer allowed. So, let's see. I'm looking to see who's in here. I got Zeranx, Frank Tomeo, Mike Hiller, Boom Creeper Man. Turned down for what? That's right. Zeranx, Ken. What's up, guys? Anime Moon, Elong, cool. And Micah, how you doing, man? Thanks for jumping on.
I'm conscious. That's the most important
Yeah.
thing, I suppose.
Are you
I
are
was
you
I was supposed to.
hungover or?
No, I my sleeping schedule's all jacked up. I was supposed to head to Colorado today, oddly enough, and then the trip got canceled last minute. So
Oh, that sucks. I mean,
yeah,
or does it? I don't know.
it does because it's a work trip, and what said work trip includes like checks are like a grand more than I usually make a week. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm gonna be hurting for certain.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, this is my last weekend before I start driving to Calgary next Friday, and I've been thinking a lot about comics. I got involved in this whole thing, this whole internet honey badger men's rights thing. The thing that dragged me into this was me wanting to make a comic. Right? I've always wanted to be a comic artist. I've been reading comics since I was in the fourth grade. Back in the, well, actually, I've been reading them even before that because I remember getting some like in the very early '80s. My mother would go to like these little drugstores and they would sell these old reprints or comics that didn't sell very well, like the Star Wars comics and Micronauts and stuff. And it'd be like 10 for $1. So she'd get, a bunch, and it was always like this bag of random issues, like you didn't know what you were gonna get in them. And she'd bring them to me, and I would just like, I'd be reading these pieces, the segments of larger stories that I didn't have any context for, from Marvel and DC books, and I was hooked, man. Even though I didn't know what was going on, I always wanted to do it. And when I got into college recently, I was like, I'm gonna make a comic, and I decided to make one about my life, and use it as sort of a to discuss romance from a male perspective. And I didn't think that that was really all that controversial an idea, but I got a lot of pushback from feminist professors and students that thought that what I was doing was somehow perpetuating nice guy syndrome and all this negative stuff. I didn't understand it. I never folded. I have 3 issues of Good Guy out, and one of them is printed and in several stores in my in the city here, and I've even sold a couple. But I think that since then, this has gotten this whole like I don't know what you call it, like this creeping ideological force has been pushing its way through the big two and even lots of independent titles and stuff. And I'm really getting tired of seeing it. And when I finally saw someone, I think the first time I saw somebody pushing back on it, it was like Vox Day's like alt hero book, which is just as bad, if not worse. I actually think it's probably a lot worse because it's just so phony and like it's not, they don't get it. And I don't think that a lot of people get it anymore. At least that work in the film. I'm sure there are still some good ones, but I think a lot of people don't get it. And now we're starting to see a bit of a change in the wind, as it were, and mainly starting with, the Cyber Frog book as well as Jawbreakers. And I'm like, why am I waiting for other people to do stuff to change things? Why don't I do that? Like, why wouldn't I do that? And so I'm basically looking to talk about what I think comics should try to be, or what I'd like to see, and what I'd offer, and why, maybe get an idea as to why they're not working in their current state. And Mike, you made a really good video about this, because I said this on the show many times, but you made this one video talking about it, because yes, I watch your videos. And you were talking about how the idea of heroism and sacrifice is lost on the people who write these books now. They don't even understand it as a concept. It's like or they don't like it or something. You know, like there's this moral relativism that comes out. Like, have you seen the article? I believe I don't remember who wrote it, but there was an article that was basically talking about how superhero movies, it's like the big thing now, and how they're questioning whether or not the heroes in superhero movies are actually the good guys or if the villains are.
Yeah,
Killmonger was the real hero.
Yeah, it was like stuff like, you know, it just, and I was just baffled. You know, I remember when
Thanos.
Go ahead.
Oh, and Thanos too.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think the reason for what Thanos is doing, that's kind of there's a little bit of a plot hole there, but I don't care. Like, it's a good story anyways. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it is.
He could just double the resources instead of killing half the people, but.
Well, there's a whole teleological discussion that we could have about that, but
I mentioned the background in the comics themselves.
But the main point that I was trying to make in that particular video was that there's something fundamentally wrong in the worldview. I did another video about some guy talking about Luke Cage season 2, and him basically wanting a discussion about race, basically forced into this story that has. I'm trying to think if there's more than 2 white people in the entire series, but what good a discussion about race would be in this, you know, in this particular setting.
Yeah.
So and he kind of regurgitated a lot of the same crap of, you know, of basically Killmonger was right and all that other nonsense, you know, trying to. He said that Killmonger. This was the funniest line. He said that Killmonger, a guy who was interested in committing mass genocide against anybody who didn't look like him, it was the moral center of Black Panther.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, now wait a minute. So Killmonger, for better or worse, is Gatsi Kodo with more charisma. And I'm like, that's the good guy. I'm like, he's one Roman salute and a paler skin tone away from being Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
But the worst part is, I don't know, do you have Black Panther on Blu-ray, the movie?
I have it on Amazon Instant. It's basically, it has all the bonus
extras.
features on it.
Did you look at the roundtable discussion they have? So I have the Blu-ray version, and they have a roundtable discussion about Black Panther with the director and like a couple of the other.
They had all of the best Panther writers.
Yeah, Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Well, I was gonna say all the best Panther writers and Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Yeah, Ta-Nehisi Coates and the other guy and like this old Jewish guy that used to, I guess, do the writing for it too. And they were all having a discussion. Did you watch that whole thing?
Oh,
because in many ways they were agreeing with the idea that Killmonger had a point, and that he was actually coming from a place of truth, and that they were celebrating the idea that was something that should create conflict in people watching. And I was like, what?
Well, I kind of understood where they were coming from, because you got to look back at you got to keep in mind that one of the guys that was in there was Christopher Priest.
Yeah, Christopher Priest, that was the guy I was trying to remember.
Yeah, wrote the greatest Black Panther run ever. The film is based on it, on the second arc of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that basically is kind of what he likes to do with his villains, is to give them at least one element that you can somewhat identify with. You know, I don't think that they were really well, maybe Coates was, but I don't think the others were really like making excuses for Killmonger. But
we all know how Coates is about the lives of people.
Yeah, say the Killmonger's politics or Coates' politics, but the point that Priest, I think, was making was that there is, you know, some sort of an identifying issue there that of what Killmonger's issue is, but he's going about it way the wrong way, of course.
Mm-hmm.
because basically, yeah, his conclusion is, yeah, let's kill everyone who doesn't look like us.
Yeah, and I think the director, he was, they were for one level or another, they were still kind of latching on to the identity politics of the Black Panther movie, and that's I think where I'm trying. See, what I want to do is, I don't have a problem with diverse characters. Obviously, I have a lot of ideas for diverse characters that I'd like to create, but what I want to try to do is, one of the things that I think is central to what I would like to make in comics is the thing that I fell in love with when I was reading them as a young guy, and that is that the identity portion of the character, like their race, their gender, their sexuality, whatever, those things were simply additional features that made the character, that added a little bit of spice to the character, okay? But they were not the central, most important features of the character. So when I used to read Black Panther comics, and I didn't have a lot of them, because again, I was poor and I just got whatever I could get my hands on. The fact that he was an African prince that was black, or more accurately, the fact that he was black it didn't really come up very often. I have an old Jack Kirby Black Panther comic, and because they did a bunch of reprints of of Jack Kirby's work, and if you could read that book from cover to cover, and if you were blind, you would not know that he was black because it never comes up. But the adventure remains exciting and stimulating and action-packed from start to finish. And it's weird and it's out there. It's basically the stuff that Kirby liked to do. There's like dimensional travel and magic frogs and all this crazy shit. But Black Panther is the main character. And that character could have been swapped out for Captain America, could have been swapped out for Ant-Man, could have been swapped out for Hulk or Thor or Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, whatever. The same adventure would have happened. It just would have been a matter of slightly different choices and different action sequences, and that's it. Right? Now, that might sound like it would make it less interesting, but I find that when you can unplug yourself from the racial politics and from the other identity politics surrounding it, it actually opens up more opportunities to do different stuff. Because I think that the biggest hindrance to television shows and movies that feature or revolve around women or blacks or LGBTQ people or whatever the identity of the day is, that becomes a central part of the storytelling, and it limits them. The reason why you can have really good stories with white straight men is because they're not allowed to have intrinsic value because they are white straight men. So everything has to be earned through the story. And if you can like get away from that, you can tell really good stories with anybody. So here's what I want to do. And I want to, like, build something. And I don't want to get anyone's way in terms of their own ideas, but I want to build a Cape comic universe. I want to be at least a part of that and make something special, something that is free from all that stuff without necessarily making that like let's say a really important part of it either. I want to focus on stories. I want to tell stories the way they used to tell them, where the idea was to get as many people interested as possible, which meant telling as good a story as possible. As fun, exciting, maybe a little lighter. You don't have to. It doesn't mean you can't do stories about anti-heroes, but even then, you can explore larger narratives. It's like Jordan B. Peterson said this recently. He was in a Monk debate against Michael Eric Dyson. Did you guys see the Monk debates with Peterson and Dyson?
Oh, yeah.
It was about political correctness. And one of the things that Peterson said was, he says, we need a larger grand narrative. I think I know what he means by that. And that's what I'm trying to get at. Like, the stories are important. Stories are important to people. I just saw a post by Daddy Warpig. You might know him on Twitter, right? And he was talking about that. He was talking about the importance of stories for people. Like we pass wisdom with stories. We share ideas with them. We explore things. We ask questions, right? And superhero stories are modern mythology. They are what, you know, like in 1,000 years, people will be digging up our remains and the remains of our culture, and they will think that we worship these people as gods, right? These characters. Who are the? I see you have the new scripture for the great John Wick. What is the lesson that we have learned? Do not kill a man's dog, you know, whatever it is. But I mean, we pass these stories on. We pass wisdom through them, and that's what Peterson's trying to do. He was basically saying we need a grander narrative, because the way that our narratives are formed now, they're extremely divisive. They exist to pander to specific groups of people and generally set them against other groups of people. And then as a result of that, there is no universal morality that everyone can relate to. You know, like the idea, for example, if somebody said, well, I think that one of the most important values that we have is freedom. Okay. Freedom to do what you want with yourself, provided you don't hurt anybody else. Seems like a straightforward value, but you can probably go online. No, not probably, definitely. You can go and find, you know, opinion piece after opinion piece and pundit after pundit saying that anybody who's talking about freedom is probably doing it because they're a straight white male, or they'll relate it to identity politics. You know,
oh, that's right.
Yeah, they're alt-right Nazis or whatever. Not Nazis that believe in freedom. That sounds like Nazi speak to me. You know,
freedom Nazis.
But I think that's definitely what happens. Like there was when Civil War came out, the Civil War movie, there was an article written by, I think it was The Guardian, and they were basically saying we like Captain America, but when did he turn into a libertarian douchebag? You know, and I was like, he was always...
Have you never read the character?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's always been...
Even Mark Wade wrote him as a libertarian.
Later, Mark Wade. Earlier, Mark Wade did, at least.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Recent Mark Wade is like Bizarro Mark Wade.
So, but see, the ideas, these principles that Captain America had, that they took issue with, those things don't know race. They don't have anything to do with gender. They don't have anything to do with sexuality. They don't have anything to do with religion. They're just ideas. They are ideas of liberty and freedom, right? And sure, people might think they're corny, but don't let those things should not allow you to. They should not be allowed to dictate how you decide to move forward with telling a story. You know, like DC did this. They reacted this way when was some stand-up comedian somewhere made a joke about Aquaman. I remember this from way back, and he was basically talking about how dumb the ability to talk to fish was. That was his routine, right? And he made a joke about how Aquaman says to the goldfish, "Hello, how is the ocean doing?" And the fish says, "Hi, Aquaman." And then he asks him, "Have you seen any trouble? You know, are you seeing any trouble around here?" And the fish says, "Hi, Aquaman," because they have such a short-term memory, they can't remember anything. And he made this joke about it at Aquaman's expense, right? And as a result of this, for whatever reason, a lot of other comedians jumped on a bandwagon and started making jokes about Aquaman. So what does DC do? They overcompensated. They were like, oh, we got to make Aquaman cool. How do we do that? We'll cut off his arm and we'll replace it with a trident, make him badass, and grow a beard out. That's what they did. The whole
Peter David run, yeah.
Yeah, they made him. They were like, we got to make him darker because this comedian made a joke about it, and we can't cope with that. And then when they decided they were going to make a Justice League film, they were still thinking about that. That guy, he haunts us. What are we going to do? Well, we're not going to get some, like, you know, Casper Van Diem looking motherfucker to play Aquaman, which is like what he looks like. We're going to get Jason Momoa, and we're going to just tat him up, and we're going to give him a fucking dreadlocks and a beard and a big ass trident. He's going to be broing it up with everybody. You know, he's going to act like some guy out of a Rob Zombie video or something, or surfer dude. And that's what they did. It was an overcompensation. It's like, guys, I'm not saying you can't do that, but I think that if you believe in what you're doing, then you can't let other people dictate the direction you decide to take. So I want to stick to those principles So anyway, I'm gonna stop talking. I wanna show you some stuff that I've been thinking about and working on. All right, so I have one character right now. I have others, but I've drawn one that I want to start with because I think, help me out here. I don't know what your thoughts are on this. Okay, so if you want to build a new universe, you want to build a universe for comics, and you want to do the same kind of stuff that Valiant and Marvel and DC and what other publishers have sort of like a superhero universe going. What's the one in Invincible? Is there like other books in that series?
There, Invincible actually ties into just like images in general. Like some other characters, like Savage Dragon, has made an appearance in it, and so is Spawn. Like I think they all actually can. Yeah, I think they all converge.
Yeah,
okay. There's also a recent one, Black Hammer.
Black Hammer?
Yeah, it's a Dark Horse property.
And it's part of a larger universe of books, too?
Yeah, kind of. There's several spin-offs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's also tied into some of, what was the writer's name?
I don't know.
He was the Old Man Logan writer. Jeff Lemire. Ties into other Jeff Lemire's independent work.
All right. Well, yeah. See that's doable. Like, I mean, I was there when Image Comics started. I was reading comics. I was buying all their shit, and then Todd McFarlane and Jim Lee and Willis Portacio and a lot of other guys. They were like, I don't like the way these companies conduct themselves in terms of ownership of characters. I want to own my own. And so they left and they started their own. They just left and started their own company with Blackjack and Hookers. And while, I wasn't, I bought the first issues of everything, but I wasn't thrilled with everything.
Hookers now, those are problematic.
Yes. The Image has gone SJW, haven't they?
Yes.
Yeah. Not that I'm surprised, but the point is they did it. They went out there and they did it. And while they had the advantage of being established artists that everyone really loved, I think that in the age of the internet, it's entirely possible to do that. So my thought is it better to start small, which is what my idea is. You have, I don't know, like every individual makes one book, and they tie them together somewhere down the line. Like you start off doing separate stories, and then you like bring them together if they pick up enough steam. Or is it better to build the universe out and then like decide where you want to start?
So it's either the MCU or the DCEU.
Oh yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that's true. Like the way they do the movies, sure.
Yeah, I'd probably start small, like make a Hulk, make an Iron Man, make a Thor.
You mean go with the one that worked in the films?
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't get ahead of yourself.
Well, I because I've kind of been putting things together narratively on my own for a bit. What I had basically thought was like come up with a base idea for the foundation of the world. Like one event that sort of like begins the whole shebang, and then bridge it out from there. And so, me personally, I actually did a stream about this a while back. Is what I had figured was this idea of what would happen if the war on terror escalated via supernatural means.
Okay.
And how pray tell would there be a response to that? So the one comic that I started to just kind of get the outline put together on, I ended up renaming it Project Alpha, and basically the idea is that the U.S. military decided that the CIA rather decided that the best way to counteract it was with scientific means of enhancing humans.
Okay.
And so they had, oh god, I'm trying to remember. There's 24 letters in the Greek alphabet, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's like Alpha, Omega, Epsilon.
Yeah. Say, yeah, and there were of the 24 people that either volunteered or were brought in to become human experiments for better or worse. Only 3 of them survived, and the 3 of them were basically prototypes of particular abilities. One is has is a telekinetic and has what I called. You guys remember Superboy after the death of Superman, how he had tactile telekinesis?
Yes, I do remember that.
I wasn't sure if anybody remembered that because they switched his powers in Teen Titans.
It was just like Gladiator from the Marvel Universe, who also had tactile telekinesis.
Yes, but I figured it's like, why not make the switch and then have him be a tactile telepath instead, where he has to touch you to read your mind.
So like Spock.
Yeah, sort of. So I figured. So one person had that ability. Another individual is a cyborg. And his gimmick basically is that he could swap out his entire body for whatever the situation, particularly needs. And I've only come up with a couple of ideas. One that's sort of like a heavy infantry sort of model, and then another one that's a aerial combat.
Okay.
So imagine like Iron Man meets Battle Angel Alita in a way.
I hear you. I actually
or Raiden from Metal Gear.
I actually have a character design that's a military guy that flies. He's like a cyborg. Mm-hmm. But I hadn't really thought through about like backstory stuff. I was just like, wouldn't it be cool to have like a cyborg guy that flew?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So.
And then with Alpha, his whole gimmick is that he can increase his density and as such also increases strength. Mm-hmm. So sort of like a mix between the Hulk and Vision. The difference is that he can't reduce his density past what a normal human being.
Like can't go backwards like towards intangibility.
Yeah, exactly. So, right. But the trick is that because he has a mental illness, he suffers from severe depression. It's very difficult for him to control his powers. So, but basically, the idea is that the three of them were created for better or worse to be either a deterrent or a force against these supernatural measures, because these certain terrorist groups, for better or worse, are summoning pagan gods to try to attack the United States.
Yeah. Okay.
So that was one thing, and I figured it's like that would be kind of the interesting bit. And then there were two other stories that I had come up with outlines for. One was called Waiting for November, which I only intended to ever be 6 issues. That's basically a story of one of those splinter groups here in the American heartland summoning a demon in a small town and what would happen. Yeah, and total hack and slash horror style series that stars a 55-year-old father trying to rescue his daughter.
Like a regular everyman kind of character?
Well, he's a former Marine, but I hate to say it, he's kind of based on my dad, but because my dad was in the 101st in the Army.
Yeah, so. No, oh, that's cool, man. Thank your dad for his service.
Absolutely.
But no, I don't think there's anything lame about that. I think that those real life inspirations actually really help tell good stories. So.
Yep. And then the other one that I had, since I was a Chicago native, and I know, Brian, you are, I have the third story is a street level one, and you're probably going to figure a basic idea when I mention it. It's called Inglewood.
Okay.
Based in the exact area.
Yeah.
So for those that are watching, Brian and I know how bad Inglewood is. But for those who don't know, Inglewood, I would say, probably the roughest part of Chicago.
Yeah,
at least right now. I mean, it always has been. I like anybody who's going up 94, or rather up 90 on the I-90 Express. Mm-hmm. Towards like McKinley Park and stuff like that. There's a spot where you get really nervous. It's because it goes through Inglewood. So the basic idea behind this is there's a guy who is the heavyweight champion of insert fictional mixed martial arts organization that's basically a stand-in for the UFC. He gets caught up in a steroid scandal, a huge one. And it is the 3rd time he's been popped. And by the terms of his contract, he basically has to vacate his title and he can't fight for that organization ever again. And he kind of goes through a downward spiral in his life and gets picked up back up by his father. And from here, he basically helps his dad in his inner city ministry in the Inglewood district. And what he ends up doing is he ends up opening a gym for kids. I was thinking about having it in Avalon Park because it's not that far away from Inglewood, but because he lives down I figured I would have him like live over in like Elgin or Schaumburg or something like that, and he drives over there. But basic idea is that tragedy strikes, because they always do, and he decides to use his skills and go and start taking down all the gangs in Inglewood and, trying to stop any sort of tragedy that goes forward. And, as such, he starts running into corrupt cops. I won't lie. The mayor in the story would basically be based on Rahm Emanuel and a pastiche of Rahm Emanuel and Pat Quinn, and be crooked as hell.
Yeah.
So, but basically an idea of sort of a one against all sort of fight to try to give Chicago its soul back.
I like that. So this is some stuff that I picked out of what you've been saying that I dig right off the bat. So in the world that I'd like to build, so with the characters that I have, is I want the setting to be contemporary. I want it to be the real Earth. So like the DC, they have like their made up cities and stuff. I don't really want to do that, especially like big cities. I'd rather use real existing places. I think that grounds readers more, when it's like, this is New York, Chicago, whatever. And I like the idea of Chicago. I had thought about, there is one thing though. I'm just going to get to this. The one thing I dig that I'd like to do is it might seem like a bit of a contradiction, but I think aesthetically it would be cool. I want it to take place in the current sort of time period with internet and cell phones and social media and stuff, but I want the aesthetic to be a little bit retro, like kind of like people still wear fedoras and suits and like kind of 1950s looking like in terms of the fashion and like the design.
So like Gotham?
Kind of like, actually,
the Gotham TV show?
I don't know. I never saw the Gotham TV show, but I was thinking like the old Bruce Timm animated Justice League, Batman, and Superman shows, where they were clearly taking place in the modern time, but you would see like the cars looked old-fashioned, the people's clothing looked old-fashioned, like just the aesthetic. Like Metropolis looked kind of retro, and there was a lot of Art Deco stuff, and Gotham was had the Gothic architecture and something along those lines. But I wanted to feel classic, but also timeless, yet be contemporary. So does that make sense? And do you guys think that there's, do you think that that's a good idea, or do you have a problem with it, or?
Oh yeah, I think that could work. Like I said, you mentioned the DC animated stuff that did that.
Yeah, for sure they did, but only they did it in the animated. But I like that. I thought, I don't want to necessarily rip it off, but I dig that they're going for something that, let's say that you watch it and you can't quite pin down what year it is, but it's modern. It's modern because there are computers and there is, the internet exists and stuff. But aesthetically, it might just be like a resurgence style-wise. Like maybe it's like right now, maybe it's just a few years ago, maybe it's a few years from now, but right around that time period, right? So
yeah, but it's like we have a country of hipsters.
Yeah, sort of.
Back to that style,
but they're likable.
Yeah, my whole idea was that what I wanted to do was whenever there are civilians involved is like try to not marvel it up and basically having everyone taking selfies and being on some sort of alternative to Twitter and having a superhero say, "Follow me here" or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Like all the annoying parts of America Chavez.
No. I don't want to do that.
No. That was my thing. Is like I just want to avoid that.
Yeah, no, to that extent for sure. Although Well, I guess since we're sharing heroes, and I can only go for about maybe 15 more minutes, unfortunately, because I got a D&D game I'm supposed to run. But I do have. I guess I'll share some of my character ideas. I don't have art for all of them though, but I have one female teen superhero because I wanted to do a teen superhero, and she's kind of a let's say a paragon archetype. She is gifted. Okay, the Greek gods have all died except for the female ones. Some of the female gods. They're all that's left. But they're dying. Okay, so the male gods have died, trying to like stave off some kind of final apocalypse for them that has partly resulted from the fact that no one treats them as gods anymore. So their power has diminished, and there's something coming, and it's eating the gods. And all the male ones have died off, and there's a few female ones left. And with the last of their power, they basically imbue a woman on Earth. This girl, she's like 16 or something, and she has like some of the powers of the female gods, like, you know, a little bit of Diana, a little bit of Hera. Well, not Hera, I'm sorry, except for Hera, but like most of the, you know, Athena and Artemis and Aphrodite, etc. And then I'm just trying to go as quickly as I can here. Zeus gives the last of what he has to her instead of Hera, and as a result, Hera's pissed and basically becomes sort of like a villain in a sense, but she operates as a mortal. And anyway, what I want to do is I just want to tell the story of a kind of a Spider-Man-like character where you have like a teenager that's getting accustomed to this thing, and I want it to be female because I think that could be fun to explore as an idea, and she might engage in some teenage stuff, like, you know, maybe she has a blog and stuff like that, but I would mainly focus on her problems in the same way that Marvel would have done for Spider-Man or something along those lines. That was an idea, but my first idea is this one. You guys can see the screens that I'm sharing, right?
Yes.
All right, so this is my she's like my flagship character idea. Her name is Bombshell. That's her superhero name. And this is her in casual clothes, so it's not a superhero costume or anything like that. And this is, let me see, there's a better one. Well, yeah, that's one, or this one. So Bombshell she was in the, is it the USO? So she was like in the 1940s. She was one of those girls that would go out. She was like a model and an actress, kind of a triple threat. And she would go to the troops and support them during World War II. She would do like performances and whatnot. And she was also the subject of a lot of like, you know, pinup paintings. So she was basically a pinup girl, model, actress. Okay. And she had a brother that was in the military that fought in the war. And she had a love interest that was actually a scientist. That was a part of the Manhattan Project that was involved with the developing of the bombs, right? And through some accident, she basically got her powers, which is, and I dig this as an idea, but she has the ability to explode. But she can make any parts of her body explode. Okay, I'll be right there. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Sorry. Yeah, let him in. All right. So and her body is really dense, as in she's heavier than normal, even though she doesn't appear to be, and it gives her, you know, enhanced strength and stuff. But she can explode herself, and either the thing that I find that's fun about it is it's a hero that could conceivably do a lot of collateral damage, so she has to be very careful, you know, when she's using her powers. But she also uses them in very creative ways. And the idea that that it's what I want to do with her is I want her to be a hero of Hollywood. So she basically operates out of that area, and she doesn't have a secret identity, so she openly works, you know, doing hero stuff and while doing this at the same time. But she's also property of the military as a result of this accident. So there's a lot of like places where you can make some interesting stuff happen story-wise. And I want her to have like this you know, like sort of 1950s look. So that was one of my ideas. That's her fighting mobsters. Because I figured that she'll fight mobsters, Nazis. Let me see if I have another character. This is a Jiangshi, which is like a Chinese zombie or Chinese vampire wearing a mask. That was another character, communist, like a Maoist one. Perhaps. Oops, that's Badger Chan. These are supporting characters. So Bombshell has a little sister that also wants to become famous, and that would serve as a side story, because she doesn't become as famous and gets involved with, let's say, the dark underbelly of Hollywood. This is a villain character that I've made that I won't go into because I don't want to spoil anything right now. That's her superior OSS operator or handler. He's like a former general. That's a drawing I'm working on. That's her brother, who what I want to do with the story is that he disappears on the front lines. So that's like the one character that I'm sort of developing, and I do have a color image of her somewhere. Oh yeah, that's the one supervillain. He's like a brick wall guy that operates as, let's say, a higher
Hired muscle.
No, he's in the mob, but he's kind of what do they call the guys at the capos? I think.
Yeah. He's a made man.
Yeah, he's a made man, exactly. So that's my idea. Her love interest must have been handsome, or she had not shallow, which I like. Well, yeah, no, he was really intelligent. That was what she liked about him. So those are my anyway, that's my idea. Like, sort of, like, it's still, I'm not I guess I do character designs and like come up with the ideas, but I'm not really a writer per se. But my wife, she's helping me out with that part. Is that Trump's wall? Yeah. That's a good idea. I haven't. I right now I just call them bricks, but I haven't. I'm not really sure about the name. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if we want to go into my ideas.
Sure.
Okay, so I talked about this in the Discord, but I'm kind of doing a Doctor Strange type character called the Kabbalist.
Mm-hmm.
And he also moonlights as a Las Vegas magician.
Oh, I like that. That's cool.
He's also fighting
like,
supernatural enemies.
Like one of those people that's like, tell me, you know, here's the card, I'll tell you what your card says. Like, kind of like as a performer. Like a David Copperfield type?
Yeah, kind of like that. And he would also fight supernatural enemies, like you and Micah's characters would, but they're a little more trippy, kind of like they're from Planescape.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I'm pretty familiar with Planescape, so.
Yeah. I also have a storyline idea involving Martians.
Okay.
Like, they're trying to summon things from the astral plane that should not be summoned. And he has to go there to stop them.
I like that. I think these are all really great ideas. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that all these things could exist in the same place?
I think that they seem to fit pretty well.
Yeah.
And especially if like Bombshell was like happened before Project Alpha. Yeah, it would be.
Yes.
She would be like a prototype.
Basically, that she was the first one, sort of like Captain America to the modern Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And my idea for a metaphysical universe could also tie into all your stuff. The astral plane, where all the non-material beings come from.
Basically, yeah. Since almost all of the enemies that I had thought of for Alpha and his crew was basically, pagan gods or extra-dimensional creatures.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
okay.
Things are synchronizing up here.
I like that. So I should take off here, but let me let me ask you guys to do this. First of all, those of you guys who are watching, give me some ideas. Like if you have some suggestions about anything, or just thoughts that you're having on what our discussion is. And as far as Artemis Worm and Micah, do you guys, either of you guys, make any of your own artwork at all?
I am by no means an artist.
Neither am I.
I can't draw a straight line without my hand stuttering. So
well, send
I
me.
know an artist, but he's already working on another project with me.
Yeah. Well, why don't you write me a description of, like, you know, a character or something, and I'll try to put together some sketches and send them to you to look at to see if I can like capture the visual look.
Well, I'm actually having Canales, the artist I know, design Kabbalist.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like having multiple artists design things, so I'll send you a description.
Yeah,
Especially
send me
if
some descriptions if you need to, like, say, you know, compare to other people. It helps to like compare to actors too. Like if you say, oh, if there was a movie, this person would play this person or something like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, send me some visual stuff and I'll put together some drawings. I was gonna work on this. I just started this drawing here, but I'm not gonna be able to do that now. But I will be back and I'll do more streams and I want to like flesh things out more and more. So I'm pretty serious about this. I'd like to. I think that there's definitely a lot of unused talent, and I want to take advantage of everybody. And you know that doesn't sound right. I want to make sure that we realize our potential. That's what I mean. So, but yeah, unfortunately I have to go. But this was a good conversation. I hope you guys had fun talking about it, sharing ideas and stuff.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yep.
Cool. All right, dudes. So, yeah, I'll try to get... Hey, Scott, what's up? Artist with a shotgun. Yeah, I got it. Okay, so I'm going to go. I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for coming on.
See you later, man.